she was married off very young and became pregnant. And as we've learned over the course of these shows that we've done, the Sea Org does not look kindly upon pregnancy. In fact, after you sign that billion-year contract, they expect to have control completely over your life. So when Astra found out she was pregnant, she was faced with the choice of having an abortion or leaving the Church of Scientology and the Sea Org and essentially being disconnected from everyone that she knew and loved. And fortunately for Astra and, obviously her daughter, she chose to leave the Sea Org, and I'm sure it was a very painful choice. And we're going to talk to Astra first. Her father will be coming on later in the show, and we'll talk a little bit more about his experience. But thank you, Astra, so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Why don't you tell us a little bit, briefly talk about how, your experiences as a child growing up in the Sea Org.
Sure. Well, I was 7 years old living in England when my mom was recruited for the Sea Org, and she joined at Flag, which is in Florida, and we all moved from England to Florida. And she knew what was going on, but my dad was also. She called my dad up to get him to come and join too. She'd gone to Flag to take some services, and that's where she'd been recruited. And my dad was told that we were going to live in a 2-bedroom oceanfront condo, that the kids were going to be sent to private school, that he was going to be an architect for all their new projects, and basically completely lied to. And my mom came back to England to get us and told me that we were going to go on a vacation, a long vacation, which wasn't true either. And when we arrived, there was no 2-bedroom condo, there was no private school, there were no days off, there was nothing. There was one motel room for all 5 of us, and then soon after that, I was actually moved into a room with other children, and I only saw my mom once a week, and my dad was sent off to the Free Winds to help with their remodeling. And it was completely, different from what we'd been told. But my dad approached my mom and said, that's it, we should go back to England. This is all lies. And she said, well, you can go back to England, but I'm staying here with the kids. So I was very, very, very unhappy and missed my friends and missed everything in England. I thought we were only there on vacation, and it turned out we were there for good. And basically those 2 years I was there, from when I was 7 till I was 9, I would go to school and come back, and then we'd be made to do chores all afternoon and evening. And then we would be sent off to bed in these dormitory rooms with other children, and we'd do that every day. And then when it was the weekend, we would work all day doing chores like cleaning people's rooms and just various chores around this motel that everyone lived in. And we'd see our parents once a week on a Sunday morning while they were doing their laundry. And I even recall a time when I got really, really ill. I think a bad flu was going around. I was about 8 years old, and I had a fever of almost 105. And my mom didn't even want to give me medication for it because they're against any medication. She didn't take me to the doctor. And she left me. She said she had to go back to work, and she left me. And I remember just laying there, just really, really ill, and just crying for her. But when I was much younger, she was really kind of caring and attentive mom when we were growing up in England. But as soon as she joined the Sea Org, it was like she became a different person. And the most important thing to her was spreading Scientology and getting people into Scientology. And it was like family wasn't important anymore.
That's a very good example. Yeah, you can imagine. Exactly.
My daughter if she had a fever of 100, of me leaving her for hours at a time and telling her I had to go back to work. I understand. I was in Scientology. I was in the Sea Org myself. I know what it's like to be brainwashed. I know what it's like to think in a certain way because you're forced to, and I understand that. And people always say, why didn't you just leave? And it's like, it's not like that. But I will never understand how a parent could, turn on their child in that way and basically desert them in that way. I now being a mother myself, I'll never understand that aspect of it.
So you would say that your mother went through a radical transformation from before she became a Scientologist to, joining the Sea Org and becoming sort of this devout, fervent adherent.
Absolutely. She was a very, very she was a Scientologist my whole life, but she just she dabbled. She wasn't in the Sea Org. But up until I was 7 years old, she was a very, very devoted, caring mom. I remember her being extremely patient with me. Really, really a great mom. I have only really good memories of her. And that's what was so hard when we moved to Florida, was she was just gone, and I didn't understand, and I couldn't talk to her, and she would just say, I have to go back to work, and it was just such a radical change. It was bizarre. But she basically decided, and she had even told my dad, when he said, what's the deal? You're not going to see the kids. They only see you once a week, because he'd been off at the Free Winds helping with the renovations, and he'd come back and found out she hadn't had a day off in months, and she was only seeing us once a week. And she said, well, I have to clear the planet. That's what she kept saying. I have to clear the planet. If I don't clear the planet, there won't be anything here for the kids, so that's what I have to do. But from the very beginning when you join the Sea Org, the first thing they do is kind of disable the family unit. They split you up. The kids have to go live with other kids. My brother was 12. He was immediately sent to work in the Sea Org, never went to school, and we hardly ever saw him. He was just working all the time. And, they sent my dad away, and they just completely disable the family unit, and you're basically told, well, you've had other parents in other lifetimes, you've had other children in other lifetimes, so this is just one of many lifetimes. So family isn't really important, but what's important is getting Scientology, getting people to get into Scientology. So that's what they focus on. I mean, I have a story from when I worked in the Sea Org. I was about 17 years old, and I was in charge of their ethics and security department, and there was a woman working in our organization who's they had a ranch for the children of Sea Org members, and they were kept about an hour away, an hour outside of Los Angeles. And the parents sometimes were allowed to go see them once a week during Sunday morning when it's your time to do your laundry. And then they decided that you can't even go see your kids then. You can only go see your kids when you get a day off. And a lot of Sea Org members didn't even get one day off a year, or maybe got 1 or 2 days off at the most. So there was this one woman whose daughter had become suicidal. She had said she wanted to kill herself. She was really, really upset. So the mom came to me and said, I've been told that my daughter's, really, really upset and in bad shape, and has said she wants to kill herself, and I need to go see her. So I said, okay, go get permission from your senior. So senior is what they call your boss, basically. So she came back to me and they said, I'm not allowed to go. It's not my job. It's the job of the Sea Org members at the ranch to handle her. It's not my job. And she was distraught. And I said, well, go ask again. And he said no again. And she ended up just going anyway, like any parent would and should do, is go see their kid. And she got in huge trouble. I mean, she was told that she had blown. Blown is what they say if you leave without permission, you've blown. It's like going AWOL, and it's one of the worst things you can do. And she was sent back to me in all kinds of trouble, and I was supposed to handle her, and I was at a loss of what to do because I was thinking she should have been allowed to go. This is ridiculous. And soon after, her and her husband both left, thank goodness for them. But that's the typical attitude there. It's like your kids aren't really your kids. Family's not your family. This is just one of many lifetimes. It's not important. And I think that's the first way they control you is to break apart the family unit, which I think is one of the major ways you can identify any cult is when they start controlling and breaking apart families.
You were married at 15?
Yeah, a month after my 15th birthday.
Now, was this somebody you had dated, or is this something that was sort of foisted on you?
Well, it's kind of, there is no dating in the Sea Org per se, because you don't get time off. You're not allowed to go out anywhere or even leave the building. But
right.
They don't arrange marriages where they say you are going to get married. But as soon as you're there, you're kind of together. You're giving your, maybe spending that 10 minutes between when you get off work and when you need to go to bed. If you're spending that 10 minutes together, basically, my ex-husband and I, we were hanging out outside my dormitory room, and we were kissing, and we were basically ordered, okay, you need to go get married before you get in trouble, because you're not allowed to do anything beyond kissing, or you can get sent to this thing called the Rehabilitation Project Force, which is like prison camp. My brother was sent to it for that reason, so you're very afraid of doing that, so that they're basically like, okay, you two go get married. So as soon as you give any indication that you're, interested in each other, that's it, you better go get married. And,
wow.
But it was known that I couldn't even get married in California because you can't get married under the age of 16 in California. So I was sent off to Las Vegas, which is where a lot of the young people went to get married.
Now, part of being in the Sea Org is you're not really supposed to have kids. Do they provide, and I'm not trying to be nosy, I'm just curious because they do, we know that they try and force abortions on people. Mark Headley made that very clear.
You're going to ask me if they provide birth control, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I'm just curious if they did because you were such a young girl. They don't.
That's the unbelievable thing, the completely irresponsible thing is that they don't provide birth control. You have to go to Planned Parenthood and get birth control, and you have to get permission to get time off, and if it costs any money, you probably have to pay for it yourself. And they or if you're going to use condoms, you have to buy those yourself, and you're being paid, the standard pay was about $45 a week. And most of the time I was there, we either didn't get paid or we got quarter pay or half pay, so maybe $11 a week or $25 a week. And that was all the money we had to buy any kind of snacks, any kind of hygiene items, anything. That was all the money. And we weren't allowed to receive money from outside sources. We weren't allowed to get money from people who were not in the Sea Org. No one was allowed to give us money. So that's all the money you're allowed to have is what they give you. So you don't even make enough money, really, to buy condoms.